quarterly special meeting of the Board of Directors. It's Thursday, February 13th at 2 o'clock. We have Councilmember Gil Morton, who is participating in our meeting this afternoon via a teleconference from the Hyatt Regency Hotel, 650 15th Street, Denver, Colorado. Enjoying the snow over there, I'm sure. I would ask Mr. Alan Cohen if you would please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Next on the agenda, we'll be going into closed session. We'll be discussing having a conference with legal counsel with regard to existing litigation, Government Code 54956.9 Alpha, two cases. First, Keep Fort Ord Wild versus the Florida Reefs Authority, FORA case number M114961. Second case, City of Marina versus Florida Reefs Authority case number M11856. Prior to going into closed session, does any member of the public wishing to address the Board of Directors on any of these two cases before we go into closed session? Seeing none, we are now adjourned in open session. We'll reconvene in closed session right next door. We'll be back as soon as we possibly can. Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and take our seats and get started. The sooner we start, the sooner we go home. Okay, we're reconvening in open session. If our council attorney would make the announcement with regard to the items covered in closed session, please.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. The board met in closed session and discussed the two items that are listed: Keep Fort Ord Wild versus Fort Ord Reefs Authority and the City of Marina versus the Fort Ord Reefs Authority. The board considered several items, but there was nothing to report.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll be having a roll call right now. Just a reminder that Councilmember Gil Morton is actually here via the telephone, so she'll be voting and participating as normal. Roll call, please.
City of Carmel by the Sea, Councilmember Beach. Here. City of Delray Oaks, Chair Edelin.
Here.
City of Marina, Mayor Pro Tem O'Connell.
Here.
City of Marina, Councilmember Morton. Here. City of Monterey, Councilmember Selfridge. Here. Monterey County Supervisor Potter.
Here.
Monterey County Supervisor Parker. Here. Monterey County Supervisor Calcagno.
Here.
City of Pacific Grove, Councilmember Cohen.
Here.
City of Salinas, Mayor Gunter.
Here.
City of Sand City, Mayor Pendergrass.
Here.
City of Seaside, Mayor Rubio.
Here.
City of Seaside, Mayor Pro Tem Oglesby. 20th Congressional District, Alec Arago.
Here.
17th State Senate District, Nicole Charles. Here. 29th State Assembly District, Erica Parker. Here. University of California, Graham Bice. California State University, Andre Lewis.
Here.
Monterey Peninsula College, Walter Tribley. Monterey Peninsula Unified School District, Dan Albert Jr.
Here.
Monterey Salinas Transit, Hunter Harvath. Transportation Agency of Monterey County, Debbie Hale. Here. United States Army, Colonel Fellinger.
Here.
Fort Ord BRAC Office, Bill Collins.
Here.
Marina Coast Water District, Director Moore. Chair Edelin, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Lena. Next, we have acknowledgements, announcements, correspondence. Michael?
Yes, Chair Edelin, members of the board, I just have a couple of items I wanted to point out. We continue to have very positive information that we're receiving from both State of California and the United States Department of Veterans Affairs with regard office has been following this closely, that the grading work for the Veterans Clinic is intended to start next month. So I just want to pass that information along.
Thank you, Michael. Outstanding news. Any other members of the board have any announcements to make? Okay, seeing none. Next, we have the consent agenda. Any member of the board of directors wish to pull any items of the consent agenda for discussion, questions? Yes, Jane?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to pull 7B for a separate vote, and then I have a question on 7C.
Okay, let's see if there's any other members of the board wish to pull any items for questions or separate? Okay, let's go out to the public too and see if they have any members of the public wish to pull any items from the consent agenda. Okay, saying that, let's go ahead and do a vote on all the items with the exception of Supervisor Parker.
Could I just ask
Yes.
my question on 7C?
Yeah, please,
I
go
don't
ahead and
think
do
it's
that.
gonna-
Go ahead and do that.
Yeah, so my question was, in the committee charge for the Veterans Issues Advisory Committee, there's the addition of the establishment of a Veterans Drop-In Counseling Center, and I guess I just wondered, it looks like it may be in conjunction with the Department of Defense Clinic, but I was just curious, is this something that they're working on with like the clinic or the Veterans Transition Center, or is this something completely different? Or?
Good question, Robert. You can answer that, please.
Yes, Supervisor, it is a separate initiative. The Military Affairs Office of the county got a small grant, and they're looking for a location for services.
Thank you.
Okay, we, tell you what, let's go ahead and have a vote on 7A, C, and D. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, those carried. Go ahead, Supervisor Parker.
Yes, the 7B is the executive officer's contract, and I just think 6 years term for the contract is too long. In other types of public agencies, there are limits on the contract term that are usually within the 3-year time frame. So even though it's not addressed in FORA's legislation, I just think it would be good for us to stay within the normal parameters. So I would move that that item be a 3-year term.
Other comments by members of the board?
I have a comment.
Councilmember Morton, I'm sorry, I didn't understand. Yes, please, Councilmember Morton.
I believe, I don't know who just talked about the 3 years versus the 6 years, but I believe that it's a better business practice for us when we're hiring an executive director of a public agency such as FORA that is responsible to the public, that the 3-year duration is a better measure of responsibility and fiduciary to the public. And so I'm in favor of approving the contract that's covered for a 3-year. And I do understand that it's an at-will contract, which means it can be terminated shorter than the 6-year proposed item here. But if we do terminate without cause, there is a 6-month severance pay. And the 3-year duration allows us to extend it at the end of the 3 years. I just think that we are acting with greater responsibility and continuing what we have done in the past, which is the 3-year intervals. So is there going to make a motion?
Okay, any other comment with regard to this item? Yes, Ralph.
Yes, I think that the term, the 6-year term is very adequate and very applicable to this situation. And the executive committee met and recommended this, and we all talked about it at the last meeting, and we said about all the reasons why we thought it was a good thing. Mr. Hulamard is one of a kind, and that's truly a statement that, you know, can't be refuted. There's no one else in this country that knows this agency like he does. And he's recognized as an expert on the reuse of bases throughout the country. Now, in 6 years, this body will dissolve. if we at 3 years have this discussion about an executive officer and not feeling that he wants to stay around, then we have to go find somebody that can get up to speed on the FORA issues in a matter of, in government time, lightning speed, and I don't think it'll happen. I think we give Mr. Ulamar the vote of confidence in his abilities, give him the knowledge that we want him to stay and finish the job that he started so many years ago and is so in tune with, that it makes sense for us to extend his contract to 6 years. And I move the staff recommendation and the E-Board recommendation.
We already have we already have a motion on the floor.
But there was no second.
You're right. Okay, first of all, before we go to any vote, any other discussion with regard to the board? Okay, out to the public. Any discussion by members of the public? Any comment?
Sid Williams, I'm a resident of Marina. I wholeheartedly concur with Mayor Rubio's comment. I think to change leadership 3 years from the sunset of this organization, you're tantamount to irresponsibility. I think you should approve the 6-year term.
Any other comment by members of the public? Okay, back to the board. We have a motion and a second on the floor for the contract extension to 2020, and that's six years. Any discussion on the motion?
Just a clarification to check with Councilmember Morton to see if she thought she was seconding the motion. It's a little bit hard to understand her. So my motion, that is, for the 3-year term. So before we proceed on the later motion.
I think it's appropriate that there is a clarification that you're asking for. Yeah.
Councilmember Morton, was it your intention to second the motion?
My objection was 6 years for 3 years.
I'm sorry.
To second Supervisor Parker's motion.
Yes.
Okay, the initial motion, initial second was for 3-year term rather than 6-year term. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor of the 3-year term instead of the 6-year term? Let's do this by a roll call vote. It has to be done by roll call. Alina?
Councilmember Cohen?
For
This
3
is to
years.
approve for a 3-year term. Supervisor Carcagno? Mayor Gunter?
No.
Mayor Rubio?
No.
Mayor Pendergrass?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem O'Connell?
No.
Mayor Edelin?
No?
Chair Potter? Supervisor Potter, excuse me. Councilmember Selfridge?
No.
Councilmember Beach? Councilmember Morton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Oglesby? Supervisor Parker?
Yes.
Motion is not unanimous. We'll need a second.
Okay, the first motion was denied.
I restate my previous motion.
We have a restatement of the motion for 6 years rather than 3 years. Do we have a second? And Mayor Gunter is second. Any discussion on that motion? Yes, go ahead, please.
I apologize. As the motion failed, it will not return for a second vote.
That's correct. We have another motion on the floor right now. Okay. Any discussion on the second motion? Let's have a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Cohen?
Yes.
Supervisor Carcagno? Mayor Gunter?
Yes.
Mayor Rubio?
Yes.
Mayor Pendergrass?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem O'Connell?
Yes.
Mayor Edelin?
Yes.
Supervisor Potter?
Aye.
Councilmember Selfridge?
Yes.
Councilmember Beach?
Yes.
Councilmember Morton?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Oglesby? Supervisor Parker? The motion will require a second vote at the next meeting.
Thank you very much, Lena. Okay, next, we have old business, consistent determination, consider certification in whole or in part of the 2010 Monterey County General Plan is consistent with the 1997 FORA Reviews Plan. Michael?
Yes, Chair Edelin, this is the actual third time that this has come before the board for review, so I know the board members have had an opportunity to read each of their board reports in this regard. This board report adjusts and to make some corrections and some modifications as a consequence of letters, deliberation, and work of the administrative committee in concert with members of the public and representatives from several public interest groups. Jonathan Garcia will provide a PowerPoint presentation that'll outline where we've been and where we are today, and then the County of Monterey will follow with a presentation of the county's general plan for consistency.
Members of the board, today on the agenda we have for consideration the 2010 general plan, Monterey County General Plan certification as consistent with the Fort Ord reuse plan. And just a little background on where we've been so far. Back in 2001, the FORA board certified, actually it's 2002, they certified the 2001 Monterey County General Plan Amendment, which incorporated the county portions of the former Fort Ord into the county general plan, and that was found consistent. And then in 2010, the Monterey County General Plan was approved by the Board of Supervisors, and it was submitted for certification to FORA on September 24th, 2013. And then in recent FORA committee meetings, in the October 30th Administrative Committee requested council review comment letters that were submitted at the time. So Special Counsel Alan Waltner did complete a memorandum addressing and responding to questions, comments, and comment letters. And after reviewing that memorandum, the Administrative Committee in January reviewed additional comment letters and also the response from council and recommended board certification. And just an overview of all the different analyses that have been provided to you today. Included in the analyses and comments are the County of Monterey's consistency analysis, which is included within Attachment B, which provides an internet link to their consistency analysis table. We have FORA Special Counsel Alan Waltner's December 26th memorandum, Attachment C. We have FORA Staff Analysis Summary, which is found in Attachment D. And then a number of comment letters and analyses from Jane Haynes, community groups such as the Sierra Club and Assistant County Council are included in Attachment F to the staff report. The County Resource Management Agency also has a letter dated October 23rd, 2013, which provides a response letter to previous comment letters at that time. And just to go into today's staff recommendation, the recommendation is to approve Resolution 14-XX, Attachment A, certifying that the 2010 Monterey County General Plan is consistent with the Fort Ord reuse plan. And just a note, in that resolution, there is a typo in recital E. The date of the approval of the 2010 General Plan is October 26, 2010, and not October 26, 2012. So just a slight typo there is noted. And I'll be here to address questions, but I'll turn over to the county for their presentation.
Thank you, Jonathan. Chair Edelman, members of the board, my name is Benny Young, and I direct the Resource Management Agency for Monterey County. Thank you for your attention to this issue. We really appreciate it. I would like to ask you for a determination consistent with the staff recommendation that the county's general plan be found consistent with the base reuse plan. I won't take a long time to summarize our thoughts in that regard, but I would like to say that the actual process to request this from you started 2 years ago in February when we requested this. You initially remanded it back to the county, the application that is. It was deemed incomplete because the Board of Supervisors needed to adopt a separate resolution stating that our Monterey County General Plan is consistent with the base reuse plan and that we intend to implement the base reuse plan, and we still do. Our board subsequently did that, and in September of 2013, we resubmitted the required information. Consideration of this has been continued several times, and we're here asking for a decision today. I would like to thank the staff of FORA for their work on this, the the admin committee who's looked at it several times, FORA council for their careful legal review, our own county council for their careful legal review on this matter, and I have with me today, in case you have questions, Wendy Stremling, Senior Deputy County Counsel. I also have with me John Ford, who's one of the senior planners in the County Planning Department. There's been some discussion, and you've received written communications to the effect that the county general plan should not be found consistent with the base reuse plan. I would like to assure the board that it is the county's intent to fully implement the base reuse plan, even if there are slight wording differences between the base reuse plan and the county's general plan. Any possible differences in the wording were not part of the county's adoption of the 2010 general plan, but rather derived from an earlier effort that Jonathan mentioned that culminated in 2002 with an action by this board to deem the county's forward master plan, which was incorporated into our general plan, consistent with the base reuse plan. We're also aware that you received a letter yesterday that asks that you adopt a resolution remanding this back to the county that would, in effect, not find the county's general plan consistent with the base reuse plan, remand it back to the county. In my view and in the staff view in Monterey County, this would not result in any functional benefit with regards to the implementation of the base reuse plan and would potentially subject the county to unnecessary cost and exposure on a number of fronts, including litigation with regard to the general plan. So we'd ask you not to do that. Our request is that you find it consistent. We are happy to present and have prepared a PowerPoint for you that would address some of the technical points from a staff perspective with regard to why we believe the 2010 Monterey County General Plan can be deemed consistent. And you have your own legal counsel telling you that, and our legal counsel for the county has said the same thing. You can find it consistent. In view of the fact that you're likely to hear quite a bit of discussion or a presentation from the audience today in this regard, and you have other items on your agenda, I would offer to withhold the presentation of the PowerPoint. We're prepared to proceed, Chair, if you would like that. But it might be a better use of our time and your time for us to simply be here, listen to the discussion, listen to the presentations from the audience, and then be prepared to answer any specific questions you have. Again, we simply ask that the FORA board find the Monterey County 2010 General Plan consistent with the base reuse plan. The last thing I would say is there are no explicit or inherent project approvals associated with this action. We fully intend to implement the base reuse plan in every action that the county takes. And this does not prepare for any subsequent project processing. So thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, and we'll be happy to answer questions now or after your public engagement.
Thank you, sir. Any questions by members of the board? No questions. Out to the public. Any questions by members of the public?
I'm Jane Haynes, and when I read the Herald this morning, I read there was a letter from Keep Fort Wild about the water in connection with this. I want to say I have no affiliation with Keep Fort Wild. I'm not in any way speaking for them. I have no affiliation with them whatsoever. But my understanding of case law is that if a letter arrives before the meeting, you have to consider it. So when I came in today, I asked to see the letter because I read about it in the Herald. I didn't know about it otherwise. And I was told because you have your own rule made up by one of your committees that it has to get here by the night before, that letter's not available. So I believe that you will be making a decision on an incomplete administrative record. I believe case law doesn't approve of that. The second thing is that I had expected to be able to use a projector today to show you some things There's a 24-hour rule you have. You have to bring over, if you're going to use a projector, you have to bring over what you're going to show 24 hours in advance, which I did before 2 o'clock yesterday. Left it here. And when I came in today, when I project this thing, there's another one. Another presentation I'll make too, but when I project this one, you can't see it on the projector. So I will just quickly try to go over what's in this presentation. I wanted to point out some things from the, I have a timer going too. I wanted to point out some things from the Special Counsel's memorandum. I was going to show them to you, but I can't. On page 25 of your packet today, it says, his memorandum says, there's no support in the master resolution for a strict adherence standard of consistency. The other thing I wanted to show you was section 802.010 of the master resolution, and it says, in the determination of consistency regarding general plans, the FORA board shall disapprove a general plan consistency if it meets any of these 5 criteria which are listed there. So there is a strict adherence review criteria. Secondly, the Special Counsel's memorandum says that public comments just simply reference the general plan as a whole and urge that there are unspecified inconsistencies. I brought along 2 pages of my October 10th letter today, and they reference 11 inconsistencies by title number, by showing the effect that it would have on the Monterey Downs project if it's annexed in that event. Finally, the finding K in your alternative resolution today, which would send it back to the county to add these missing programs, uses a definition from that's applicable to Title 7 of the Government Code, and the Fort Ord Reuse Authority Act is under Title 7.85. It makes all the difference in the world, the difference in those findings. So if you're going to approve the resolution today, I would ask that at least it be the second one, although I believe you can't because you don't have a complete record before you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next public speaker, please.
Good afternoon, members of the FORA board. My name is Amy White, Executive Director of Landwatch Monterey County. We submitted a letter to you on January 9th, so I'm not going to take up too much of your time. I just want to read a couple of the portions of the letter. I'm not sure what page it's on in your packet, but it is included. FORA must disapprove a general plan if there is substantial evidence that it is not in substantial conformance with applicable programs specified in the reuse plan and section 8.02.020 of the master resolution. There is substantial evidence that the 2010 general plan is not in substantial conformance with applicable programs specified in the reuse plan. For instance, the general plan fails to include the reuse plan's applicable open space and recreation use program A-1.2 requiring recordation of the natural ecosystem easement and deed restrictions. The general plan also omits the applicable reuse plan noise program B-1.2 requiring segregation of noise generating uses from sensitive receptors. The general plan also omits a material portion of the recreation open space land use program B-2.1 requiring habitat buffers to be at least 150 feet and requiring that the buffers not contain roadways. Finally, general plan recreation open space land use policy A-1 misquotes the applicable reuse plan policy by changing shall protect to shall encourage the conservation and preservation. In sum, because the issue at hand is whether the general plan contains applicable policies and programs, the relevant evidence here is simply the evidence that one document includes the applicable policy or program and the other one does not. So Landwatch encourages you to fix it, send it back to the county, fix it, and then bring it back here to FORA. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next public speaker, please.
I'd like to present some documents to the clerk. Is that okay? Before I get started, am I to understand that the projector does not work today?
No, it does. You just can't small print. See it.
You can't put, so I can put a document on the projector?
Remember the staff help him put a document on there, please. Yeah, you need to identify yourself, please, for the record.
Michael Salerno, I'm representing Keep Fort Ord Wild.
Thank you.
Okay, so it is working. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the FORA board. Once again, I'm Michael Salerno from Keep Fort Ord Wild. In September, we presented a lengthy letter to the Board of Supervisors on the consistency issue. We feel the plans are not consistent. We would reiterate all the items that we presented in that letter to the county in the fall. Those are contained on the documents I presented to the clerk. In addition to those, what I'd like to focus on today, and that we're particularly concerned about, is water and the inconsistency between the county plan and the reuse plan with regard to water. Potable water supply in Fort Ord is very limited. FORA does not know how much longer the supply will last. For example, the FORA plan requires jurisdictions to have land use regulations that will ensure that development entitlements will not be approved until there is verification of an assured long-term water supply. On the other hand, the county general plan presumes that a long-term sustainable water supply exists for all development on county land on Fort Ord. That's policy PS 3.1. All development, including the proposed Monterey Downs development, would be presumed to have a long-term sustainable water supply. Based on this inconsistency alone, the FORA board should find the county plan to be inconsistent with the reuse plan. FORA defines the reuse plan to include the master resolution. Fort Ord's water supply is severely compromised due to seawater intrusion as well as groundwater contamination from former military use. The reuse plan calls water a scarce resource. The reuse plan presents measures to ensure that development is managed within this resource constraint. I'll try to hurry along here, I'm sorry. The jurisdiction's general plan is required to be in harmony with the reuse plan. That is a fundamental purpose of this consistency determination. The county general plan and the reuse plan are not in harmony and are inconsistent. Fort Ord is supplied by a small aquifer. FORA is aware of the aquifer and its limited size, and that it is not actively being recharged. FORA does not know when the aquifer is going to run out of water. FORA has never established the safe yield of this aquifer. FORA has done nothing to address the steadily dwindling small supply of water. Thank you.
30 seconds.
The county general plan presumption of a water supply, the county general plan presumption of a water supply for all county development on Fort Ord places at risk the water supply for other jurisdictions, including developments like California State Monterey Bay and commercial developments along Imjin Road.
15 seconds.
Thank you. A particular risk is the entire city of Marina, whose residents and businesses rely on water from the same small aquifer pumped by the Marina Coast Water District. Please, we would request that you do not find the two plans consistent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next public speaker, please. Any other member of the public wishing to address the board of directors?
Sid Williams from Marina again. I would like to say basically that I believe the folks that you heard from today so far are doing their level best to obfuscate and to cloud the redevelopment of Fort Ord until FORA no longer exists. We are not approving a specific project here today. We're not asking for a water supply assessment from Marina Coast Water District for any project or any other item today. The county has said that they have included the FORA reuse plan in their base reuse, in their county general plan, and that they fully intend to support the base reuse plan. And there is no reason why we cannot get forward, prove consistency, and keep moving on the redevelopment to get this economy back.
Thank you, sir. Any other members of the public wishing to address the board of directors on this item? Going once, going twice. Thank you very much. Back to the board. Last minute comments or an entertaining motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd move the staff recommendation certifying that the 2010 Monterey County General Plan is consistent with the Fort Base Reuse Plan. If I get a second, I'd speak to it briefly.
Supervisor Parker made the motion. Mayor Gunter had his finger up before you were able to say something. So Mayor Gunter is the second. Any discussion on the motion?
Just as the maker, and I would ask Benny Young first if there was any answers you had in rebut to any of the comments that have been made.
Thank you, Supervisor Potter. And Mr. Chair, there's just a couple little things that we would address if you're willing to grant us that.
Go ahead, please.
I'd like to ask John Ford to assist me with that.
Okay.
Just very briefly, we'd like to remind the board that while the county does have policy PS 3.2 as part of the general plan, the FORA, Fort Ord Base Reuse Plan, also includes a water allocation that can't be exceeded. So that is really the limiting factor here. And just one other point that was raised was that with respect to the natural ecosystem and easement deed, which is to be placed on open space property, we are aware that that needs to be applied. We do acknowledge that that is not in the Fort Ord Master Plan portion of the county general plan. But we have been maintaining that we will have those deeds applied to the appropriate pieces of property. Be happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you, sir. Yes, Victoria.
I just had a question. So if I look really back at the big picture, and I know that a lot of people here know more about it than I do, but I'm wondering, it seems to me like the folks who are wanting to look at this later have substantive issues with the two documents being consistent with it. And it seems like the lawyer from the county acknowledges some differences, but says that it is a procedural issue that prevents the county or discourages the county from looking at it again. They mentioned the fear of legislation or litigation. I guess not legislation, litigation. I'm wondering if maybe that could be addressed, because I'm having trouble giving more importance to a procedural issue than a substantive issue. If the county acknowledges that there are things that could be better aligned, why not just make them better aligned? So I just want to understand the gravity of these litigation or other procedural issues.
Is remember the county that can answer that.
Mr. Chair, Wendy Strimling, Senior Deputy County Counsel. That sounded like a legal question, so I thought I would jump up. I'm not sure I totally understand your question. Our opinion from County Counsel's office is that the general plan is consistent with the base reuse plan, and you do have Chief Assistant County Counsel's memo. I believe it was distributed last month. And you don't need, the standard for consistency is not identical words, word for word. And as we've stated, and others have stated, in your opinion of your own counsel, is that our general plan incorporates and references the base reuse plan. And we've also, the Board of Supervisors passed a resolution stating that it intends to carry out the general plan fully in conformity with the Authority Act. So having said all of that, I think your question may be referred to what Mr. Young stated about if you remand it to us and the concern about litigation. I think the issue there is simply that, if you determine to remand it, then the county would, in its discretion, decide what it wanted to do. The county could fall back on the 2001 Fort Ord Amendment, which this board has already certified in 2002. And I will point out that some of the language that's the public has commented upon was in the plan
that this board has already certified as consistent with the plan. So one consideration for the county, and this would be a determination for the Board of Supervisors, would they just revert back to the amendment that's already been certified? If the board in its discretion decided that it wanted to go forward and consider amendments, I think the issue there is that that just turns into a set of arguments about the general plan and all of the policy decisions that will ultimately have to be made about Fort Ord. If the board wants to entertain that discussion going forward, it certainly can. But in the meantime, they've already made a determination of consistency. We prefer to have that be acknowledged and have that be the baseline, and then going forward in the future, if the board desired to have policy discussions, it could.
So, I'm sorry, maybe it would help if I just give an example to discuss. So I understand what you're saying, but so the example that the public raised where there are differences in the language between shall protect the habitat, for example, and will encourage or might encourage or whatever those two. So if you just take that example, and I don't really have my own personal opinion about a legal opinion, but what would be so tough procedurally about simply aligning that language and satisfying the objections there? So, and it may be something very, very laborious, but I would like to know what, just so you take one example like that.
Well, I mean, anytime, I think you're asking a process and a substance question.
Yes.
A process question, anytime the board could act, it would, and then at any time there's an action, it could be subject to a lawsuit. So I think that was probably what Mr. Young was referring to in terms of
aren't we
there's
all
always
always
a
subject to lawsuits?
But as we've also stated in our opinion, we don't believe that that language is necessarily weaker than the shall protect language, because we do need to harmonize with all of the goals and objectives in the base reuse plan and the general plan. So.
Okay, so
we don't believe it's necessary to do that in order to have protection.
I'm worried about getting sued also. This is why I'm asking this question. I think that this board has to, I'm wondering why I should drop my cross T dot I standard for this board because of something procedural that the county is wanting to avoid. And I'm open to the possibility that I should, but I want to know why.
In this particular case, we would submit to you that it's really this one in particular, and they're all complicated and have many ties to them, so forgive us for that. But in this particular case, this is language that goes back before the land swap agreement out in the East Garrison area. The land swap agreement, when it was adopted, addressed the issues that the EIR was trying to address there, and so the final language that was moved from the draft EIR into the final EIR that ultimately made it into the plan was also addressed in the land swap agreement. So functionally, it has been addressed. And that is what's in the mountains of paperwork that you've got, is that functionally there's no point in changing that right now because the land swap agreement already addresses it.
So then I'm satisfied with their answer. I would love for my colleagues to tell me their thoughts on this same topic if they're interested in doing that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any other discussion on the motion?
And Mr. Chair, just procedurally, since I was the one who...
Director Potter has the floor right now.
I simply asked Mr. Young to come up, and I was prepared to make a couple of comments. There is no project before us today, and I think that's pretty clear. What we're talking about is the consistency of the general plan with the FORA reuse plan. This issue around water, as Mr. Ford said, there was an allocation specific to each jurisdiction. That allocation may or may not be used up by the time certain projects come forward. If we want to have a discussion about those allocations and taking those away or something or doing something different, that's a discussion for another day. It's just an attempt to cloud the issue here in my mind. The simple fact of the matter is that we have a general plan, and we should have several years ago gone through this consistency discussion. But staff had changes and turnovers, and we're here today simply on that issue. These other issues about projects and are they or are they not going to get approved or are they consistent, those issues have miles and miles to go before they come before this board. So I speak solely to the consistency of the general plan today.
Let's have Director Morton. You have a comment, please? Director Morton?
I have a comment, yes.
Yes, please.
So what my concern, and it's very difficult to hear, so if I repeat, but I'm following up on, I believe it was Ms. Beach, was asking the question about the difference in the standard in the Monterey County General Plan that's proposed for consistency. And my concern is that if, in fact, as a FORA board member, we are required to uphold the reuse plan standard, which that discrepancy between something being mandatory, shall, versus discretionary is really important. And what I'm reading here at page 61 of our board packet is that once there's a consistency determination, so if we were to find the more lax standard in the Monterey County General Plan being consistent with the base reuse plan, at page 61 of our board packet, under the settlement agreement, then any project, and I'm looking at the second paragraph on that page, item G, which then requires that if any item, any ordinance, zoning district map, other legislative land use decision on grounds that such action do not conform or is inadequate to carry out the provisions of the general plan, which we've certified, as long as they're consistent with the Monterey County General Plan, which is the lesser standard as it's currently worded, that's all that we can judge by. So what we've done is allow the Monterey County General Plan to shape base reuse plans rather than vice versa. So by making the Monterey County General Plan consistent with the base reuse plan, any further actions in more specific planning, we are able to enforce what we are supposed to be enforcing as a FORA board, which is compliance with the base reuse plan. So that's, I think, a critical distinction here. I had a second question for either the Monterey County representative or Jonathan, who presented for the FORA, the water issue. Would it perhaps a correction? The correction is the presumption, the concern is the Monterey County plan has a presumption if your property is the land within zone 2C, that the public services provisions of the Monterey County plan give rise to a presumption of an adequate water supply. And we all know that the base reuse plan, one of the biggest constraints in development on former corridor is due to the base reuse plan insists a limited water supply of 6,600 acre square feet that's been allocated among the different jurisdictions. What if the correction, it seems to me to be an easy correction to put in that the presumptions that are set forth in the Monterey County plan in Monterey Public Services Code, section 3.1, do not apply to lands within the former Fort Ord. So that it's very, very clear that the Fort Ord water standards and limitations would be applicable to any development on county lands in Fort Ord. So that's my question.
Our attorney counsel or authority counsel, John Giffen, would you like to answer that, please?
I'm not exactly sure what the specific question was. I might ask for Steve Inslee's help in terms of the water issue. Gail, can you formulate your question for me?
Yes. My understanding is that one of the inconsistencies is created by a presumption that in Monterey County Public Services Code, section 3.1, where there's a presumption of adequate water supply for property land within zone 2C, which is Fort Ord County land is. So my question
answer the question in a much more general way, it's a little difficult to get into page 12 dash this and that. But the way in which it works is that the base reuse plan is predicated on having an adequate water supply, and there was an environmental impact report that was performed. That's all at the general plan level. So as the supervisor pointed out, if you have a concern about an individual entitlement, which was one of the items that was flashed up on the screen, an entitlement is not before you tonight. An entitlement has to also demonstrate that it has water in order to go forward, and they do so by getting a will serve or some sort of equivalent letter from the applicable water provider. So that would be required in the future. So, I mean, that's the basics of how it works. There is no way in which the county could somehow approve a general plan that is going to deviate from those standards.
Thank you. Any other questions with regard to the, I'm sorry, Ralph, you were next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This discussion about the general plan is an overarching guiding document for the development of property or not development of property, which pieces are slated for development, which ones aren't, which one could be open space, and so on. And if a project were to come forward, it would have to go through a consistency determination here. And all the questions about water, buffer zones, all those questions would have to be answered here. After the EIR is completed and all those questions are asked there, if there's any mitigations, all those things will happen here. So this is not the last bite at that apple. Now, the one thing that occurs to me is that the base reuse plan supersedes. It does have authority over all of that. And a prime example is the case of prevailing wage. It's general prevailing wage on the former FORA order, with very few exceptions that are outlined in the document. That was taken to exception not once, twice, 3 times. The base reuse plan language prevailed in several lawsuits, and that's the basis for saying yes, our language is solid, our language does prevail. And in terms of the water was based on the allocation given to the military in on FORA order, and it was divvied up, and the Army still has a very substantial portion of water left in their allocation. Everybody has their allocations. Now, it was always known that there may not be enough water to accomplish all the goals of the base reuse plan outside of those allocations. And that responsibility goes to Marine and Coastal Water. Now, Marine and Coastal Water is obligated to this board to augment that water supply through RUOP and other projects, including a desal project or other new water source. The fact of the matter is there's been no work done on either one of those, and there's at least $3 million that I know that the MRWPCA has left stranded on that project, and there's a lot more that MCWD has spent on that project and has not furthered that goal along. Now, what I think it's incumbent on this board is to make a statement that we expect MCWD to meet its obligation to this board and to the jurisdictions that are depending on that water, and to make that very clear. I know that there are different philosophies on that board, but their only charge is to supply water. So I think as a board, we can cut short that discussion about water because it's due to us, it's owed to us, and we should get it. In terms of my support for this, we've been here 3 times. This is the 3rd time we're hearing it. And every time we come to make a decision, we get a last-minute piece of a letter or another view, and that's just to delay us. I think it's time for us to move this along, get it done, And like you said, Ms. Beach, we're always liable to be sued, and we probably will. And whether we do it this way or the other way, we're gonna get sued. But this is a consistency determination I have no problem agreeing with.
Supervisor Calcagno.
Yeah. Okay, I've sat back and I've listened, and I can support Supervisor Potter's idea that the plans will complement each other. I can go ahead with that. But when I hear my friend Ralph Freeburg mention that the Army's got so much water that was assigned to them, it was assigned out of 2A. And 2A is water from Nacimiento and San Antonio. Everybody else in that basin was assigned water too. And it's got to the point where the basin is being overdrafted to the point there's not enough water to sustain the growth that we're put upon it. I'll come right out and frank and say it, there's not enough water to supply the forward growth in the future until we develop a new supply. At the present time, the community of Castroville probably won't have water in 4 to 5 years. Every time you take water out of the basin and you go further down the valley with a Marina Coast well, you're taking it away from the community of North County, where we realized many years ago that there could be no more growth and that we had to put a moratorium, one house per parcel, whether it's 100 acres, 200 acres, or whatever. And, you know, the general plan of Monterey County might be comparable, but we're all pulling out of a basin called 2A, 2B, and 2C. It belongs to all of us. And right now, if FORA was to grow with their plans, you take water away from the city of Salinas, you take it away from Castroville, you take it away from North County, and you're already doing that. There's no water in that basin to sustain this type of growth. When we planned that in the county and said there was long-term water supply, we were planning that the rubber dam was going to work. It's not working because we've got to leave out a hell of a lot more water to get it down to the rubber dam so we can get it in our system, and 10 times more. And the reason for that is that we've got growth in the Salinas Valley in agriculture, and they're pumping the water out. We also got trees in a river that are sucking 28,000 acre feet out. So right now, until we get a water supply, and I'll go along with supporting the action on the floor, but if this body thinks Marina Coast is going to get water for them, unless it comes from due south, it's not going to come from the ground. And you got to understand that. And you know, the Salinas Valley is going to fight like hell if Marina Coast goes another mile up the valley and digs another well to bring water to FORA for growth. We can't afford to have that water. We're going to have agriculture ground that's going to be pumping salt. It's already to Cooper Road, for any of you know it, that's 7 miles in. It's moving towards Blanco. There is no more water. We have no more CSIP. You've got to understand that. And if there's going to be growth, you need a water project, and you need it fast. And if it's desalinization, fine. I'm going to go along with this today. But if it gets any further, then growing to take water out until you have a water supply, you're taking it away from my constituents. And you're going to create an economy here and kill an economy somewhere else. That can't be. We need more water. And the basin you're pulling out, you need 58,000 acre feet a year to fill it up. And you're going to need about 20 years to do that before we get it back where it was. You know, you don't need brain science to figure it out. If you want to go on a tour, I'll take you on a tour and show you where it's at. You know, Marina Coast, it just keeps moving up, and they're moving up to Salinas Valley. Your next dam well will be at Spreckles. Yeah, Castroville can't afford to go to Spreckles to get their water. And, you know, I feel bad because in the general plan, North County, which includes all the basin that you're pulling water out, put an idea. We realized there was no water. And we said 1 house per parcel. And in the meantime, East Garrison is growing, Marina's growing with houses. That's not fair. That's not fair. Our plan, our general plan might be a good general plan, but one area is not comparable to another. What we're doing is sacrificing one area so another area can grow. When you've got the water, I'll support it, and I'm surely not against any of that. But right now, I gotta worry about my people and the people I represent. They don't have water, and they're losing water every day, and it's and you know, if you don't know where your water's coming from, I'll show you where your water's coming from. And it's coming further and further in the Salinas Valley because salt water is already up 7 miles. And you're taking it away from communities. I don't want to spend much time on it. I'm going with this motion on the floor. But I'll tell you what, if it goes for any development until there's a water supply where my people have water, I'm not supporting any more growth at Fort Ord, and I'll lead the charge against it.
Thank you, Lou. Next is Supervisor Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Supervisor Calcagno, you don't have to support the motion on the floor. There's an alternative. We could ask that that attachment E be the action taken today, which would we could add some tweaks to it that would take care of some of these problems. I would just say that the Board of Supervisors did vote that the general plan was consistent with the Fort Ord base reuse plan, but I voted against it for several reasons that I said then, and I'll just talk about a couple of them again now. The difference between the words shall and may, FORA has dealt with in the past, and you know there's a difference. A policy stating that you must conserve oak woodlands is stronger than encouraging protection of oak woodlands. So I would only consider the adoption of the resolution in attachment E, refusing certification and requiring the county to amend their general plan, which they say is meant to be in line with the base reuse plan. Well, why not make it consistent? And I think there should be a couple tweaks to attachment E, that resolution. First, I agree with the amendment and the changes recommended by the Sierra Club in paragraph K, that we're misrepresenting the standard of review and we need to fix it. I also appreciate the work of the Sierra Club providing FORA a list of the policies with inconsistencies, but I'd be more comfortable with a broader statement that the county must match FORA policies verbatim and say including but not limited to this list of policies in case they didn't catch every single one. I would also bring it back to this board for approval rather than authorizing the executive officer to sign off on the changes once they're made by the county. And finally, there's this issue of water. The county general plan policy on Zone 2C is in conflict with the limited allocation that the former Fort Ord has. The county general plan says that any development in Zone 2C is not required to prove long-term water supply. And the base reuse plan says that it must show an adequate long-term water supply. So the county's water policy can't apply to Fort Ord where the conditions are different. So it would need to be stated clearly in the county's general plan that that PS 3.1 policy saying that there's no need to show adequate water supply does not apply to the former Fort Ord. That I could support, but not the motion on the floor.
Ms. Charles.
Yes, the motion I second.
Ms. Charles has the floor right now.
Yes, so very simply and quickly, Senator Monning wanted me to make just a quick statement on his behalf since he couldn't be here today. And he would like to see a resolution that avoids preventable litigation and delay consistent with the base reuse plan. Very simply stated.
You're the most succinct speaker we've had here this afternoon. Thank you very much. We can learn from you. Thank you very much. I believe Councilmember Morton had a comment. Gail?
Yes, I'm still here. So I didn't know that Jane was making a substitute motion for attachment E. Was that what I misunderstood? Because I was willing to second that.
We have a motion on the floor and we have a second. We're in the discussion on the motion right now.
And no substitute motion.
No substitute motion. Any other discussion on the motion that we have on the floor?
Yes.
Yes.
Chair, I've been blessed to be at FORA for the last year. Or unblessed, I can't figure out which. Being the mayor of Salinas, I have an opportunity to witness many actions with the Board of Supervisors, and with no disrespect for the 3 Board of Supervisor members or their staff that's here, I figure if we could send this back to the county, FORA will be gone when we receive it back. Because they have a tendency to take items and keep them for a very long time. So I think we're in a position now that we need to move forward or just close it down and move forward. We've approved a contract today for our executive director, and I think this is the time for us to show leadership and move forward and start taking some action before FORA closes. Thank you.
Okay, if there's, yes.
Yeah, I want to say something. I thank the chair. You know, we noticed a very important issue, and it's finally getting to this stage, and I just want to agree with Supervisor Potter about what's really on the table. It's not a project, it's not about water, it's about the general plan being consistent with the base reuse plan sent by the Board of Supervisors. They voted, they said they're comfortable with it. We asked their lawyers, the county council, to look at it. They said they looked at it, and our council looked at it. And I want to say I appreciate Ms. Jane Haynes for sending us through the questions and the thought process. And regardless of whether people are comfortable with the answers or not, she and the Sierra Club did a good job because we provided answers. Now, if you don't agree with them, then that's fine. But that doesn't mean our lawyers are wrong, and that doesn't mean your lawyers are wrong. It's a political decision, and we need to stop dancing around it and just say we believe that it's consistent. And I think the lawyers gave us a very firm base to do that, and I think it's based in the law, and so if people want to sue, this won't be their first time. And I'll just say this about water. I believe Ralph had it right when he said this board is lacking if we keep allowing people to talk about water, but we don't make marina close to go find water. Supervisor Calcado was right. We should not keep on encroaching in this area. But those same people that say we don't have water, when we talk about desal, they say don't build a big desal. And then they say you don't have enough water to grow. You know what I'm saying? They're playing us against each other. So my point is, if we're going to go forward and we want to develop something on the former Fort Ord after allowing for close to 18,000 acres of open space, not including the acreage that each individual agency, city, land use jurisdiction is going to save, then we need to go ahead and go forward. I think we can find water, but that's a different issue. But you can't say don't build on Fort Ord because you don't have water. Then when I say let's build a desal plant, you say, well, we don't want you to build enough water in your desal plant to grow. And so I just put the thoughts on the record, and I look forward to supporting the motion.
I'll be sending a letter to the board of directors of the Marina Coast Water District, asking them to come before our board with a presentation as to how they're going to present the water and some timelines that we can expect, so we can meld what their plans are for development of water with what we intend to do here as a member of the board on the FORA. So we'll be sending a letter out in there, trying to get them back as soon as possible. Okay, if there's no other discussion, we do have a motion and a second on the floor. We'll have to take a roll call vote because Councilmember Morton is here on telephone. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Cohen?
Yes.
Supervisor Calcagno?
Reluctantly, yes.
Mayor Gunter?
Yes.
Mayor Rubio?
Yes.
Mayor Pendergrass?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem O'Connell?
Reluctantly, no.
Chair Edelman?
Yes.
Supervisor Potter?
Aye.
Councilmember Selfridge?
No.
Councilmember Beach?
Yes.
Councilmember Morton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Oglesby?
Yes.
Supervisor Parker?
No.
Okay, the motion will return for a second vote.
Again, thank you. As is our custom, next month we'll have the second vote on this item. Thank you very much, everybody. A great discussion, food for thought. Next, we have the post reassessment items. Approve the amended post reassessment work plan, the post reassessment advisory committee extension, and receive a budget report. Michael?
Yes, Chair Elam, members of the board, the post reassessment actions that you have before you are informed by well over a year's worth of work after the reassessment report was accepted in December of 2012. And all during 2013, there were a significant amount of activities that culminated at the end of the year with the colloquium that was actually recommended by President Ochoa from the California State University Monterey Bay. That colloquium provided a great deal of information for everyone as we move forward in Hensley will provide an overview of current items that are before us with respect to post reassessment. Josh Metz from FORA staff, who's been providing staff to the post reassessment advisory committee, will also present a work plan for the coming year, including the regional urban design guideline work that will be done by administrative committee and the other work that needs to be done with respect to blight removal and other budget impacts. So Steve, he's ready for the overview.
Members of the board, I'm just going to do a quick overview of what we're asking you to do tonight, and then we're going to have Josh Metz and Jonathan Garcia walk you through a little bit of the detail. The three items that we're looking at tonight are approving an amended post-reassessment work plan, because as you know, we've spent the last year working on a post-reassessment process, and we're at a point now where we have to formally do some housekeeping about re-upping that particular effort. And so we thought we would show you the work plan itself, and then also the second thing that we need to do is to actually formally reappoint or extend the tenure of the post-reassessment advisory committee that you've set up. And there's also some budgeting accounting that we have to do that we'll share with you as well. And then I believe the chair will also just discuss with you his goals and appointments and so on. So that's what we're doing. We'll also have it back up on the screen at the time that we're asking you to consider taking votes. The other bit of background is just that, I guess, when we left off our saga, we had done a reassessment of the base reuse plan, and the consultant had come back with a series of categories of work that needs to be done or has been done and has to be declared done. So these categories have become famous and known as categories 1 and 2, category 3, category 4, category 5. They all stand for certain states of the completion of work and what needs to be done in order to move them to an endpoint. So for instance, just as an example, categories 1 and 2 were a series of items regarding prior actions that had been taken by this board, consistency determinations, and related types of events. And this board had asked a question about having that reviewed by a CEQA attorney. And so we did secure the services of that, of a CEQA attorney, and they reviewed those items and have written that up in the form of memoranda that we've shared with you and the public and others, and so on. So each of these categories are in a particular status, and what Josh is going to do is he's going to walk you through our proposed work plan for the rest of this calendar year in those areas, and a couple of other things that have come up as well as part of the colloquium process.
Thank you, Steve, members of the board. As Steve gave a good introduction to, we'll start with this chart, which is a little bit hard to read probably for most of you, but I'll do my best to walk you through it. In general, here we have category 1 and 2, as Steve referenced, is dealing with text and primarily with text and figure changes that the PRAC worked on considerably over the last year, and these items were reviewed by the FORA counsel, Waltner, and he recommended that these items are moved to completion, including CEQA process. Yes. So that here's a summary of what those involve. As I just talked about, Waltner reviewed them, and these will result in a usable land use map and corrected text and figures. There is an item in there which is coordination with regional plans, which we have called out for status report by the fall of this year. The next set of items is category 3, which we're calling the yet to be completed base reuse plan policies and programs. And probably the item of biggest, greatest note here is the completion of the regional urban design guidelines. And so we've laid out a plan to move those through a process to completion by the end of the year. And we wanted to note that, again, this is hard to read for you all, but this is drawn directly from the base reuse plan, page 61, which describes the regional urban design guidelines as pertaining to not the complete area of the former base, but to specific areas identified in that plan that are summarized in that bullet point list on the lower right. The Highway 1 Scenic Corridor, which the board approved those guidelines in 2005. Remaining to be completed is the town and village centers, the regional circulation corridors, trails, and some of the gateways outside of the 1,000-foot distance from Highway 1. And this effort would include staff and consultant time, and would be, in our plan, directly linked to the board. Category 4 is the section that was the focus for most of the PRAC's effort, and through their work led to the framework for the colloquium, a lot of the key items that were discussed there. And from that process, and since then, a set of 4 suggested topics came out of that are being recommended for the focus for the PRAC for the remainder of the year. As you can see, they deal largely with local job creation, ecotourism, issues with land use policy adjacent to the National Monument, and a trails project that would dovetail nicely with the regional urban design guideline process. So these are all important items yet to be completed and would benefit from attention by the PRAC. Finally, category 5 deals with FORA procedures and operations, and we're recommending a return by us to this board to present a more detailed work plan on those items later in the year. So this item, blight removal, Steve was going to add some additional comments about that. Thank you.
So just to reiterate that there are a number of touch points where we're going to come back to this board, or various other committees of this board will be taking on a particular portion of the work. You can see it's an ambitious schedule, but things like the CEQA required as per the Waltner memo would come back in May and July for categories 1 and 2. And the category 3 work will primarily go to the administrative committee, and the regional urban design guidelines project we thought was just such a sort of a big issue that has been of concern to members of the board, public, and others, and so that would be a board project. You can see the various times that we'll come back for workshops and other kinds of events. And then the category 4 items, which is also, I think, a very ambitious work plan for the PRAC if you decide to extend their tenure later in this meeting. And then ultimately category 5, which requires procedures and operations changes if necessary. We would come back with a report on that and get direction from this board. Coming out of the colloquium, there were some exciting possibilities related to blight. So we've added that to the work plan. And there are essentially two tracks. One is to try and piggyback, if you will, with the good fortune of CSUMB of having received $30 million earmarking from the system-wide in order to do building removal, and it presents some opportunities for economies of scale. And the two areas, of course, in question with the so-called hammerhead buildings are right across from each other, CSUMB and the Surplus 2 properties in Seaside. And then also coming out of the colloquium, several of the speakers were talking about a number of best practices for tackling some of the other blight and building removal issues that need to be done. A revolving loan fund was mentioned, and there'll be other things that we will look at, and we will come back to this board with some ideas about how to tackle that issue as well. So, moving on, I just wanted to say a little bit about the budget. It's actually quite a relief that we're not coming to you tonight to ask you for money, because it's already in the budget. We have originally a post-reassessment budget in the 13-14 fiscal year, $450,000. We have spent roughly $100,000 of it for the colloquium and the CEQA attorney and a few other things. And so we have about $350,000 remaining that presumably would be applied to the CEQA consultant who will help us process the Category 1 and 2 items, and help us do, it would be a different consultant who we would then procure to help us with the regional urban design guidelines process. But there could be also other elements related to the CEQA attorney and to the facilitator and other expenditures for consultants that we've used in the past. But we'll come back to the board and keep you posted on what we think those needs are and any actions that are needed. So what we're doing tonight, so we would come back and just summarize it. You could take these separately or package them together, however is most appropriate. We're asking that you accept the 2014 work plan that we've outlined tonight, that you formally approve the PRAC extension, and that you approve a revised PRAC charge, which I believe was included in your packet. Do we have that can be flashed on the screen, or I guess it doesn't matter, but there are some slight revisions, I would say, not hugely changed, but there's some language changes on the PRAC charge. And then Jonathan's going to come up for just a few seconds and tell you a little bit about the colloquium budget report, just so we can put to bed the very successful colloquium, at which point we'll then turn it over to the chair.
Members of the board, just a quick rundown on the budget. So the board approved the budget for the colloquium back in September, and that budget was for $56,725, and the PRAC committee helped throughout the preparation process for the colloquium event and found cost savings in three areas primarily. The event advertisement, which CSUMB covered the cost of that line item. Honoraria was a reduction as well, because the PRAC was able to recruit speakers without the use of the honoraria budget. Also, the workshop facilitator, we decided that we didn't need to recruit one for the event, so those were the major cost-saving items. And then a few additional cost items included supporting meals for the event and supporting free parking for event attendees. So it resulted in about $20,000 of savings, revised budget of $36,080. So just providing that budget report. Thank you.
Yes, just a comment by me with regard to BII, Post-Reassessment Advisory Committee Extension and charge. Of course, this year we'll be working on Category 4, the Policy and Program Modifications for the PRAC Committee. As far as roster changes are concerned, Mayor Bill Camp, the mayor of Pacific Grove, has a leadership philosophy. He likes to rotate his council members into different jobs, different committees to give them as much a wide range of experience as possible. So Bill will be leaving the Florida Resource Authority Board of Directors, and he will be replaced by Casey Lucius. And as such, since he's leaving, he was the chair not only of the negotiation committee with regard to the Preston Park, which he did a phenomenal job. He was also the chair of our finance committee, which he did a phenomenal job there. The only person that comes close to replacing him as chair of the finance committee, and he does a phenomenal job, a good background, is Mayor Pro Tem Ian Oglesby. I asked him and he accepted it. He said he would be the chair of the finance committee. He had absolutely nothing else to do for the rest of his life other than work on the finance for FORA, so we appreciate his volunteering there. Since we're putting him there, that leaves an open, and so Councilmember Casey Lucius will be joining the PRAC with the rest of us. So those are the proposed personnel changes with regard to the committees. Any member of the Board of Directors have any questions on any of those three items that we just covered? Yes, Rob.
Yes, in terms of the PRAC and the anticipated work schedule, I have a real concern, and it's not that I don't think the PRAC does a good job, but it really does affect the city of Seaside in a very extreme way. And that was the design guidelines. The areas where it mentions that would be applicable to the regional guidelines, regional roadways, town and village centers, and lands adjacent to the National Monument. The lands adjacent to the National Monument, that's almost our whole eastern border in Seaside. And I would really like to be able to be there in real time on that discussion. Two, gateways. There's only a couple of gateways into the former Fort Ord, and I know at least two of them are in Seaside. And one of them is in the main gate light fighter area, and we really need to be present in that regard. Also, town and village centers. I need to understand what that means. The surplus 2 area is going to have a little bit of a village center aspect to it, as well as the main gate shopping center. And the specific plan for the main gate shopping center is already done. So those are really big issues for me, because I really would hate to, as we move along in our development program, we already have an ENA for surplus 2 and light fighter drive, to have someone come up and say to us, well, you can't do what you're going to do because we don't have regional guidelines yet. That's not going to fly. That is just not going to fly. So I have real concerns about that element of the guidelines, and that may be one of those items that gets elevated to discussion on a regular basis here at the full board.
Michael?
Chair, the board actually made a decision last year and assigned responsibility for regional urban design guidelines to the administrative committee and asked that there would be reports regularly back to the board. We at the staff level recognize that we need to hire professional support and assistance, and thought that some well-placed members of the board on part of the selection panel, along with representatives from the administrative committee on who would do that work, would be important. The city of Marina and Seaside County in particular, and then hopefully the chair and the representative from Carmel, because of her unique experience in landscape planning, might be an appropriate way to have a selection panel. And we at staff level, we're going to bring that back to you as a recommendation. We've not yet fleshed that all out, so when we put the flesh on the bones of that idea, we would bring that back. And that's sort of where we were thinking, since you've already made the decision last year where the regional urban design guidelines were made.
One other comment, and that is anytime there's a discussion with regard to any that's going to impact on any city or any organization member of FORA, we will notify the entities involved so they can send a representative there to represent just to provide input and see exactly what's going on. So there's nothing hidden here. We do publish the agendas, and we'll be cognizant of, especially of Seaside sensitivity in that regard.
Well, I appreciate that because the RAC is a small committee, and it does impact, our whole jurisdiction.
Small but very potent, to say the least. Yes, Director Oldsley.
I'm just going to echo what the mayor commented on. I have full faith and confidence in the BRAC. They did a wonderful job, and I know they do a good job going forward. But as I look at their, some of the suggested projects that they're going to work on, local job creation, then it's job creation through ecotourism. Is there two different things or the same thing? Land use policies adjacent to the national monument. Well, my city is adjacent to the national monument. So that means you're coming up with policies on what you do in my side of the town. And so we just have to be cautious about that. I mean, if FORA wants to talk about policies in general, we got a base your use plan, but we need to be cautious about saying what should be on the other side of the road in national monument. Something has to be there other than dirt and grass and other trees. I mean, that's just, we reserve the open space, but if that's open space, then across the street shouldn't be open space. So I have full faith in what they're doing, and I appreciate the hard work that they do and they have been doing. So I just put those comments out there. And just the last comment is like trails. If you don't work with the local land use jurisdictions, and particularly the city of Seaside or Marina, about your trails coming out of the National Monument, what do they lead up to? And see, it would be unfair for that trail to come out and then they say on the other side it needs to be another trail when you have plans for something else. So just a close coordination, and I think they will do that. I just want to put those on the record. So
thank you. Very well stated. Director Parker.
Thank you. Just a clarifying question on the budget report. Do I understand that because the budget was already approved and the amount that we're spending came in under budget, that we don't have to take any action approving anything, just to be grateful for the creativity and cost savings?
We're saving money, so that is correct. Any other questions by members of, yes, Debbie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Debbie Hale with the Transportation Agency for Monterey County. I wanted to just say that one of the things that came out of the colloquium was the degree to which some of the policies that TAMC's been working on were recommended by a lot of the speakers, such as Complete Streets. We've just developed a Complete Streets guidebook, and so we would like to work really closely with FORA staff and the board on these regional urban design guidelines, because the circulation piece of that, we have a lot of thoughts in that regard, especially with some of the extra looking at circulation we've been doing related to our multimodal corridor.
Thank you, Debbie. The FORA TAMC partnership is very strong. Thanks. Any other questions?
Quick comment.
Yes.
I just wanted to echo the concerns and the comments of Ian and Ralph and Debbie. I think what might be a little bit misleading about this chart, for those of us who've in the design world, and Debbie is among them, I think because the scheduling, that the PRAC might be involved in the scheduling of the regional urban design guidelines process, every successful process that I've ever heard of or been part of is hardly a small operation. It is a very large, transparent, public. The whole point of it actually is to make sure that you uncover every stone so that when you hit the ground running with a developer or whatever, you know what you're going to get, everyone's on the same page, and you get it. So the idea that anyone would ever want to go forward with a small group in the actual development of the guides, it would be crazy actually. It would be the antithesis of the reason you do the process. So I certainly understand that if you're not in the business of going through these things regularly like I have been, you might not know that, but it just really is about making sure that Seaside gets what they need in coordination with
what Ian was saying about, that's the point of it, and actually recording it and getting it all kind of in front of us, the public understands, and you basically get to as close to 100% consensus as you can. And it's a really, if it's done right, it's a fun and creative and useful way to get speed into the development process. So that's my cheerleading for the process.
You say hit the ground running, you definitely hit the ground running, that's for sure. Okay, any other comments by members of the board? Yes.
I just want to follow up, and I agree. I've been through the process before, and it is a good process. I just know that, for example, the Highway 1 corridor was quite an exercise, and we had to be present and very attentive to the detail, and that's all I'm saying.
Okay, thank you. Any other? Let's take it out to the public. Any comment by members of the public? Seeing none, back to the board. Entertain a motion, please.
Mr. Chair, I move the 4 recommended staff actions in one motion. Approve amended post-reuse work assessment plan, approves the post-reassessment advisory committee extension and revised committee charge and membership, and then receive the budget.
Motion by Director Potter. Is there a second? To a second. Okay. Second by Director Potter. Supervisor Director. Director Trump Supervisor. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, signify. We have to have a roll call vote. No roll call vote. Okay, Jane. Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Oh, aye. Aye, good. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay, next is to the FORA Master Resolution Amendments. And I'd like to cover this one first of all. At our last meeting, we had the elections for the officers for this year, and it was a fairly tight vote, and there was some concern expressed about the fact that it seems like the executive committee continues on the same dinosaurs involved there, and a lot of folks wanted to mix it up. So I promised I'd bring it back before the executive committee. The executive committee discussed it for a long time and had some different ideas back and forth. We finally came up with a recommendation. The recommendation you see is in front of you right now. Basically, we're recommending we do away with the second vice chair. So you basically only have a chair and first vice chair. And basically, we get rid of the second vice chair with an additional member at large and change the past chair to immediate past chair. And I'd just like to reemphasize that each of these positions is not really a 2-year position, it's a 1-year position. It's been traditional over a period of time that folks serve 2 years, but it's up to the vote of this body next January whether you want to make it a 1-year position or a 2-year position. So that's our decision. So you can see the recommendation from the executive committee is in front of you. Open it for discussion. There are also some changes to the master resolution you have before you. Ralph, please.
Yeah, I'd like to thank the chair for listening to the board and making some changes that would add some diversity to the board.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other comments from the board? Okay, out to the public. Any comments from members of the public? Okay, back to the board. I entertain a motion. Do we need a roll call or?
I move the staff recommendation.
Okay, we have a motion by Director Rubio by the staff recommendation. We have, yes. The second for Jane. Go ahead.
Just to be clear, there are also a couple of corrections that are in master resolution have to do with the specific listing of the districts because they've changed. So we corrected those in the master resolution. There's a few corrections that are also part of this. None of them have to do with the word shall.
Yeah, 15th to 17th Senate and 17th to 20th Congressional. There's some wordsmithing in there. You've got a part of your packet. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion on the motion? Do we have a roll call vote or do we do an open? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Next, we have a public comment period. Any member of the public may address the board here on any item not on the agenda. You have 3 minutes. Please state your name for the record when you go up there.
This is Williams from Marina. I promise this is the last time I'll come up tonight. I just wanted to make the board aware, a week ago today, the United Veterans Council had a recognition dinner to say thank you to a lot of people who helped bring the Veterans Cemetery to fruition. And I would like the board to also realize that members of the board, specifically your chairperson, as a leader of the board, and Supervisor Potter, were recognized for their support in that effort. And specifically, the executive director of FORA and members of his staff, particularly Robert Norris, were recognized for setting the tone and doing the groundwork that helped bring this cemetery to where it is today. And we thank you.
It was an excellent evening. A little emotional there, here and there. 20 years, the veterans of the peninsula have been working together to get this thing to fruition, of which a large number, I guess Jack Stewart's the last one of the original committee there, the rest of them are all basically passed away. And we're trying to put this cemetery together for in their honor, and hopefully the first ceremony we'll have will be interment of those veterans that started this. Mayor Rubio was also there too. He was also honored at some of the time there. As well as Erica and Nicole were also there too. So again, thank you for your efforts representing them and so forth. Okay, any other members of the public wishing to address the board?
I'm Steve Eklund. I live in Salinas. I spent most of my active duty military time at Fort Ord, and I hated the place. All I saw was the barracks and the rifle range in my office. And when they wanted to Whispering Oaks, tear down Whispering Oaks to put in an MST yard, I went out there and never realized how beautiful Fort Ord was, and it still is. I think we should do everything we possibly can to keep it as beautiful as we can, so that I check everything we've been talking about and use this as a recreational area. We've put in biking trails, hiking trails, and I can see people coming from all over the place, especially veterans who lived here, come back to visit the place, and also the Veterans Cemetery. If people are going to come to visit the graves of their dead veterans, give them a reason to stick around. This is just an incredibly beautiful place. I can see this being turned into a very attractive tourist area. So we put in biking trails and hiking trails and keep as many trees as we possibly can. We have some of the cleanest air in the country around here. One of the reasons for that is all the trees that absorb carbon dioxide and produce oxygen. So let's keep this area the best we can. It's just a beautiful area. So let's keep it that way. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for your service. Any other members of the public wishing to address the board? Seeing none, public comment period is closed. Next, executive officer's report.
Yes, Chair Edelin, members of the board, I would like to highlight just one or two items, especially item 11B. We continue to provide you with information on what the work that's being done on the Habitat Conservation Plan. We are working with Senator Monning's office, and we'll also be working with Assemblymember Stone's office on moving this process through at the state level, as well as working with Congressman Farr's office. And members of the executive committee will be traveling to Washington, D.C. We're going to try to have meetings with the Fish and Wildlife Service and the Congressman on moving that along. We have a May 2015 schedule for going through this completion. I want to highlight this one more time because in the coming months, the cities of Seaside, Marina, the county, Delray Oaks, the city of Monterey, and others will be seeing a draft cooperative agreement, which the jurisdictions will be asked to look at and to review. That cooperative potentially will not just serve us the needs we have for habitat conservation, but many members of the public and members of the administrative committee have suggested it potentially is a platform for how we proceed forward. And I don't want to scare you with respect to what we have to do in 2018 with respect to successors and interest to FORA, but the Habitat Conservation Plan, the Joint Powers Authority, the cooperative, could be a framework for how working together in the future proceeds post-FORA. And I just want to make sure to have that kind of policy level attention on that item. And the second thing I want to mention on the executive officers
questions for our executive director? Any questions from the public? Okay, any items from members you'd like to share? Seeing none, ladies and gentlemen, we're adjourned. Thank you very much.